We're talking today about bereavement and cookery. Now, you might not think the two go together, but you'd be wrong. In Cirencester, there is a cook who's using recipes to help people through bereavement. Dulcie James has created Taste the Memory, and it's to allow people to work through their grief while cooking. Now, whether it's recreating a loved one's recipe or learning to cook for one for the first time in your life, Dulcie believes it's easier to talk over a chopping board or a saucepan. I went to her kitchen to find out more.
Is that all right? That's a Dorset apple cake going on now.
Some lovely
smells fantastic. Now, we're going to open that one because in there is 2 loaves of tomato and basil bread, all fresh ingredients, and that's proving in my bottom oven at a very low temperature, so we'll just whack it in there in a moment.
So, Dulcie, how did you come up with the idea of connecting bereavement with food? Because it's probably the first thing that you might go off when you're bereaved on something. You lose all appetite and all interest, frankly.
It's very clear that food actually evokes our memories. I mean, for me, the smell of burnt toast reminds me of my first honeymoon in a bed and breakfast with Mrs. Brady. And, you know, boiled cabbage for Sammy's school dinners, you know. And when you've been married or been with somebody, or your grandmother used to cook you something special, then the smell of that roast, or the lovely apple crumble coming out of the oven, or all those beautiful smells evoke happy memories. And losing someone is horrendous, and it's very, very sad. But we can, over a period of time, as the real sharp end of grieving passes, we can actually bring back those memories through cooking. And a lot of people out there I recognise, like my mum, because I lost my father in July this year. And I looked at my mum, and she was losing the plot. She was very, very upset. Oh, I don't want to cook for one, you know, but she's got me. So I go over, or she comes here, I cook things for her, and she takes those away. And I thought, I've always been naturally interested in people, and with my expertise of cooking, I wondered if I could perhaps put something together to help people. So, with the winter coming, I thought we'd just make a lovely curried parsnip soup, something just gentle. So we've got a little bit of celery and some onion going into a pan with some butter melting. I'm all about ease of cooking, that's the thing. I've been cooking for donkey's years. I know all the shortcuts. We've got some chicken, actually chicken stock cube. You could use vegetable stock cube or don't bother at all, but this gives a really good rich background flavour to what we're doing.
Do you know, I realised something. As we're doing this in the same way that you and a client would be doing this, you're talking, but you're not necessarily in eye contact, and you're concentrating on what you're doing. Funnily enough, things start to open up because it's not intimidating at all, is it?
No.
Finger in the parsnips.
Finger in the parsnips. I've chopped them nice and small so it's quick and easy to do. And we're just going to get that nice and hot through.
So it's a different way of opening up.
It is. So people can just relax with me. They don't have to stand on ceremony. They can talk about anything they like. So it might be that they are wanting to talk about their loved one and how things were. They may actually prefer not to because they're focusing on a new life. That's the other thing. So for many people, you know, whatever their lifestyles were, they may have to move out of their home. Perhaps all their plans have altered because they may have to go out to work if they're a younger generation. For many, the life is just never the same again. It just changes, and it's up to the enormity of those changes. And with the training that I've had, it helps them make sense of their world. And I've got lots of suggestions up my sleeve, and if there's anything I don't know, being very resourceful, I can certainly find out and, you know, get back to people and actually help them as a source of information. This is doing really well. It's
good, nice toast coming out there. Just sizzling butter.
Nice sizzling butter.
So do you find that it's one-on-one is the way forward, really?
I think for this kind of thing, yes. But perhaps a little later down the line, when we've got a few clients and they've gotten used to coming and they're actually beginning to feel stronger, it might be that I'll invite a few people back to have a bit of a workshop so we can do Share Your Memory.
And share some food.
And share some food. Sit around my table and just make the world go round, or talk about, you know, bringing shared memories together and really just just a place to go.
Returning to our conversation now, I asked Dulcie about that grieving process.
Grieving, the actual sense of grieving it releases endorphins that affects our appetite. So then people go off their food. And this is a lovely nurturing way. I mean, the environment is a lovely big kitchen I've got here, and nice and safe, and they can do as much input as they want, but what they do at the end of the day is they take home their food. I'll portion it up for them if they wish, and they can freeze it, or they can keep it in a large pot and have their family round and entertain. All sorts. It either teaches them to cook, or we can recreate a loved one's recipe, or we can do batch cooking. Whatever they want, I tailor it to their individual need. So that's where it came from, really, was finally when I lost my father this year. I recognised there is a real need for something like this out there. I've just I've got some more water in there, I think, and we'll turn it down, and it won't take long, Anna. And then you'll be able to have heartwarming supper. We ought to keep an eye on the cake in the oven as well.
It's interesting you touched on one thing, and I was thinking about that, because if you do cook, but you're left the only one, that can be hard because you don't necessarily feel very motivated to cook for yourself.
Yeah.
And if you're left alone and perhaps have never been the cook, that can be terrifying, because suddenly
Absolutely.
not only have you lost your partner, but you've lost the ability to have hot food or whatever.
Well, this is what the gentleman that I saw last week said to me. You know, his wife did everything. He was out to work, he'd come home. It's the old generation. It was done for him, every single thing. And then, in her passing, after 59 years, what do you do? You know, ready-mades are one thing, but actually, when you go past a certain period, when the mist clears and there is a sort of bit of a healing going on, you kind of miss home cooking. It's very daunting for some people because they've never cooked before. And so when the gentleman came along, and I think what he wanted was to get his timing right and have some simple dishes to cook. So what we did was salmon and broccoli pasta with a bit of leek and perhaps a bit of parmesan thrown in for good measure. Nice, gentle, soft, easy. And then quite outrageous, because I asked him what kind of flavours he liked. Was it English, you know, Mexican, Chinese, Italian, French? And he told me Italian and English, but what I actually ended up cooking for him was also a mild chicken curry. And that was interesting. And I let him taste it as we went along, make sure I wasn't making it too spicy for him. And I potted it all up, and there it was on the table. There were, you know, 6 portions, 6 dinners for him, already done up. All he's got to do is just put them in the freezer and warm them up. So not only did he get taught how to cook, but he went away with a nice bumper pack that kept him going anyway. And he had a nice loaf of bread and pot of marmalade and a Dorset apple cake. And what he said was, well, I've enjoyed watching, but actually now what I'd like to do is have a go myself. He said, and we discussed what we were going to learn next time. So we've got a few ideas up together for another time. And
but he also got to talk, Dulcie, didn't he? And you know, how important is that?
Yes.
We're in a fast-paced society, to have somebody listen to what you have to say.
I gave him the time, you see. And that's the other thing, from what I see, you've obviously, some people are lucky enough to have a network of friends and family, and they're there, you know, in the very beginning, aren't they? They're coming round, you know, are you doing all right? But gradually, they think, oh, that person's okay, and it sort of starts to peter off. Actually, that is the very time when people still need. But by this time, you know, friends and family, they've given their time, and we're all busy, we all lead these busy lives. Doesn't mean they don't care, but they allow that person some space, and then that person says, what next? Which hopefully is where I come in. Well, there we go, what do you reckon? I think that's done. And we'll leave that there, and look at the size of these loaves. I think these are going to lit.
Oh my goodness, they smell fantastic.
I'm just going to bring that down very gently so we don't knock them back.
Interesting that the idea came about following your father's passing in the summer, and you've got a nice big picture, a big photograph of him overlooking this. That's important to you, isn't it?
It is, because actually, when I finally got this set up, I looked at my dad and I said, this is my tribute to my dad, because that's what I feel. And it's given me comfort in helping me come to terms with losing someone who was incredibly dear to me. He was always very interested in what I did in terms of my career and so on, and obviously the family, but from that side of things, you know, he was my right arm really, and he was very, very helpful, particularly in the early days. So I just feel he's there now. So it's a way of bringing him back to me, and I hope that other people can hear this and can recognise that this actually would be lovely for him.
Dulcie James there, and you can find out more about Taste the Memory at tastethememory.co.uk. That's tastethememory.co.uk.